Part 14. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 131. Xingyo, who was carrying Hualien with a war gun, stepped forward slightly to act as a guard to prevent a sudden attack from the other side. After listening to what Herglass and Huaxiang said, Huaye waved his hand and signaled in the communication channel at the same time. Kill Huaxiang. Xingyo nodded and pulled the gun away from Hualien's body, and then the dark energy ignited and penetrated into Huaxiang's eye socket with a pop. Even a generation of divine bodies could not recover from such fatal injuries, and a generation of angel kings fell instantly on the spot. This scene made Herglass and Huaxiang narrow their eyes, and the already tense atmosphere became tense. Huaye spread his hands and said with a smile, "Oh, I'm sorry, my hands are slippery." Xingyo, who had just killed an angel king, saw a black line flash across his forehead when he heard this. "Didn't you say you killed Hualien? Why did you blame it on me? I will never take the blame." Hualien's death did not make Herglass and Huaxiang too angry. Rather, they were slightly happy, because his death meant that the legions under his command would become ownerless. But the captains of the two celestial warships that had just landed from the sky and belonged to King Tianyu didn't think so. They lost their minds instantly when they saw their loyal king die in front of them. "Give me the whole army to attack and avenge the king." The male angels who had originally been ordered to stand still immediately attacked as if they were being washed away by a wave. "Kesha, let's leave here first. The plan has changed. Now Hualien's subordinates have lost their minds." Kesha nodded and agreed with Binghua's suggestion, and instantly warned Liangbing, who was eager to make a move, not to attack but to retreat first. Binghua, Kesha, and Liangbing quickly flew back, while Herglass and Huaxiang were indifferent and still stood where they were. In a moment, a dense crowd of male angels passed by Kesha, Binghua, and Liangbing, including several third-generation male angels, numbering in the tens of thousands. Huaye was not surprised but overjoyed when he saw countless angel warriors rushing over, because it was better to fish in troubled waters in a chaotic situation. "We'll break out over there later, and leave this planet first." Huaye indicated the direction in which the male angel legion was charging, and Xingyo nodded to show understanding. He spun the gun in his hand several times and pointed it at the incoming angels, with excitement on his face. "King, let your subordinates come down and open the way forward for you." After saying that, Xingyo shouted loudly, disappeared from Huaye's side and sprinted out. The silver-edged and black-backed war gun in his hand instantly pierced the chest of a leading third-generation warrior. Facing this scene, Herglass and Huaxiang, who were not far from Huaye, continued to remain indifferent and had no intention of taking action. Only by letting these Hualien's men know that there was no hope of revenge for the king would they have a chance to subdue them, right? Of course, Hualien's death was actually an accident. If Hualien had delayed for a minute or two according to the plan, they and the female angel would have arrived to surround and kill Huaye. Unexpectedly, Hualien was so useless that he couldn't even hold on for a minute. In the end, he was caught by Huaye and died tragically on the spot. When Huaye confronted the two kings, his expression did not change, but he never stopped trying to contact Chen Xing in the dark plane, but without exception, everything came to nothing. Xingyo, who rushed out not far away, was like a tiger entering a flock of sheep. He waved a war gun so airtight that it could tear the air with every swing of the war gun. The angel warriors who rushed forward were all separated from each other, with arms and legs missing. Even the second-generation warrior's tough body, which was as tough as steel, seemed to be cut open by the war gun, and died on the spot. Suddenly, the corpse of an angel fell from the sky to the earth like dumplings accompanied by a rain of blood. A male angel with the level of the leader of the angel legion waved a cross sword blessed with dark energy and roared, then rushed towards Xingyo over the surrounding angel soldiers. "Well done. Become a dead soul under my gun." Xingyo turned around and flipped the war gun in his hand flexibly, easily deflecting the slashing cross sword, and made an explosion. Before the air wave dissipated, the tail of the war gun in Xinyo's hand thrust forward and struck the rusher. The male Angel Legion commander who came up pushed him back with his chest. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Xinyo turned the war gun in his hand over again, and thrust the gun blade into the flying male Angel army commander. With a pop, the war gun specially made for targeting super soldiers easily penetrated his neck. As Xinyo moved sideways, a head flew up with splashes of blood. This scene continues to play out. The male angels surrounding Xinyo are like crops growing in the ground, and Xinyo is the farmer harvesting. And thousands of meters away, Binghua, Kesha, Liangbing and others did nothing. Binghua is collecting some data from Xinyo's battles, such as attack speed and some habitual movements. These data will be used for reference. Liangbing and Kesha are different from Binghua. They are not very good at close combat. They are collecting data in the planet's atmosphere and correcting some loopholes and errors in the algorithm. In just half an hour, hundreds of the angels encircling and suppressing Xinyo were killed. This efficiency was shocking. You must know that this is not on the ground, but in the three-dimensional air. The male angels are not standing there and letting Xinyo slaughter them. Suddenly there was a bang not far away, like a thunderbolt exploding on a sunny day. Huaya and Xuanguang suddenly got into a fight with each other without knowing what happened, and the outburst was countless times greater than that on Xinyo's side. Huaya stood in a huge pit, looking up at Heglas and Huaxiang above his head. Hergras grinned ferociously, his muscles all over his body bulged, and the heavy armor on his body seemed to expand a little, and then he held the battle axe and swooped down like a cannonball. Huaye's eyes twitched and he raised the Wang sword in his hand, and the next moment, boom! Like an earthquake, the ground with a radius of several thousand meters trembled. Countless cracks as thick as a bucket spread wildly around Heglas and Huaye. The soil was blown into the air, and then was crushed into dust by the spreading air waves. In the sky, Huaxiang, who looked like a noble prince, drew out the royal sword from his waist and raised it above his head. His cloak-like cloak was flying in the wind behind his back, and then he saw the sky darken over a radius of 10,000 meters. It's not pitch black, but rather hazy and dim, as if the sky has been covered with a layer of pitch black gauze, and all the sunlight in the air has been pulled out. Contrary to the surrounding scenery, the Wang sword held high by Huaxiang was bursting with dazzling white light, like a cluster of bright sunlight. This is exactly the star energy driving technology that Huaxiang is proficient in. Because we are not in space, the stars can be gathered together not as blazing orange, but as white light that is filtered by the atmosphere and becomes extremely bright. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 132. Seeing this, Heglas below held the handle of the axe with one hand. The battle axe continued to press on the king's sword that Huaya held across his head to block. He made a fist with his other arm and punched out with all his strength. The dark energy instantly gathered in front of the punch, as if Hegratha's arm was covered with a layer of burning dark energy gauntlet, and at the same time, the power of the punch was increased several times. Although Huaye's basic strength was higher than that of Hercules, his lack of combat experience meant that he had no time to make adjustments. With a bang, Huaye felt as if his abdomen was hit head-on by a crashed battleship, and he almost vomited out all the drinks he drank. Not only that, the compressed dark energy in Sargera's fist was then transformed into terrifying heat energy and kinetic energy and exploded. Huaye's body was blown away in the shape of a shrimp, knocking out a chasm several meters wide and dozens of meters long on the ground behind him. At this moment, Huaxiang, who had finished accumulating power in the sky, also chopped down the raised Wang sword. The next moment, the bright light slanted out like a river. The so-called torrent of light in the legend was probably nothing more than this. The extreme brightness brings blazing high temperatures. The soil begins to melt the moment the torrent of light washes down, and eventually turns into fly ash and dissipates. Hua, who was sinking into the mud, had a hard look on his face, stretched out his palms to grab forward, and silently said gravity drive in his heart. The next moment, ink-colored dark energy emerged in Hua's palm, something in the air was changed, and the soil suddenly floated into the air and began to fly sideways. The torrent of light that was about to rush in front of Hua suddenly bent and twisted to one side, narrowly missing Hua and hitting the ground behind him. Hua stood up with his hands in a grasping position and laughed a few times. Don't you think that I dare to step into this planet alone without doing anything? Seeing this, Huaxiang in the sky no longer wasted dark energy and computing power. The torrent of light bursting from the sword blade instantly dissipated in the air, and the sky became bright again and no longer dim. Seeing this, Hua pulled his grasping palm downwards, and at the same time he let out a loud drink. I hate looking up to others, come down here. Huaxiang's expression changed. A downward force suddenly pressed forward, and he had no time to adjust the flight algorithm of the angel's wings, and his whole body instantly fell downwards. It was like Hua grabbed Huaxiang with his palm, just when Hua was about to rush over and give Huaxiang a hard blow with the king's sword in his hand. The sound of shaking air came from 11 and then a shiny tomahawk hit Hua on the head with a bang, sending him flying away from the place on the spot. Hua flapped his wings to stop his body from flying upside down, and cursed at her glass angrily. Come head on if you have the ability. A sneak attack is nothing like the King of Angels. After the dust on the spot dissipated, Glass, who was revealed, also cursed and cursed back. Are you stupid? You fight the two of us and you still stand there in a daze. If I don't hit you, who will I hit? The heavenly King also took this opportunity to adjust the algorithm of the angel wings and flew into the sky again. At the same time, he loudly reminded Hegrath below. Be careful, it's the driving technology for controlling gravity. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Hua grabbing in the direction of Hercules. In an instant, Hercules felt his body flying backwards, as if the gravity suddenly turned sideways, and his feet on the ground were unable to provide any grip. However, Hercules reacted very quickly and spread out his angel wings to stop his body from flying upside down. However, in an instant, the direction of gravity changed to vertical again, and Hercules fell face first to the ground with a bang. But the next moment, the gravity pressing on Hercules disappeared, because Huaxiang didn't just watch, he rushed over and slashed Hua's head with his sword, interrupting the gravity drive. In fact, strictly speaking, the gravity drive cannot cause any harm to the first-generation god like Hercules, but the fact that it can change the direction of gravity at any time is very disgusting. Not talking about the battlefields of Hua, Glass and Huaxiang, Xinyo not far away slaughtered all the second and third generation warriors among the besieged angel warriors, leaving the remaining generation of warriors completely vulnerable. Xinyo didn't stop after the war spear thrust out and penetrated an angel, like a gourd piercing the body of another angel. Faced with the siege of more than 10,000 angels, Xinyo was not unscathed. There were countless minor injuries on his back and limbs. Only his chest was unharmed. But these minor injuries will heal in a matter of seconds thanks to the recovery ability of the first-generation divine body, and they are not serious problems at all. Xinyo, who was holding a war gun, looked around and did not dare to show a trace of disdain to the male angel who came forward. Keep going. But the male angels around them are not fools. They are not those uncivilized civilizations who are not afraid of life and death for the so-called faith and glory. They also had parents and relatives, and King Tianyu had now fallen, and the leading legion commanders had also died in battle, so they became afraid. This emotion spreads like a virus in the hearts of the surrounding angel soldiers. If no one extinguishes this emotion, then it will be obvious that what awaits the male angel will be a huge rout. Xinyo snorted and prepared to support Hua. Now that the road has been opened, these male angels have lost their will to fight. As long as the Help King suppresses Huglass and Huasiang, they might be able to turn defeat into victory. The male angels around him watched helplessly as Xinyo turned around, not daring to attack at all. But suddenly there was a deafening thunder in the sky, and at some point a dark cloud gathered in the sky, with streaks of blue thunder and lightning swimming among them. "If you don't want to die, get out of the way." A cold but warning female voice echoed in this space, and a figure was seen standing under the thunder clouds, looking down at them with a sword that burst out with dazzling lightning and flames. It was Binghua. After collecting Xingyo's battle data, Binghua began secret preparations. The dark clouds gathering above her head at this moment were her masterpiece. It was a bit unrealistic to cause harm to Xingyo by relying solely on her own calculation power and the lightning converted from dark energy, so Binghua thought of borrowing the power of nature. Rolling black clouds covered the sky with a radius of several kilometers, like a rolling sea of black clouds that wanted to crush the earth. Binghua felt that he could not control the thunder and lightning above his head to strike accurately, and could only use the flaming sword in his hand. To lead. The colleagues' thunderbolts as thick as buckets flashed from time to time. When the male angels below saw this, they quickly spread out for fear of being affected. When he saw the male angels who had gathered together dispersed, Binghua stopped waiting, fearing that Xinyo would use his extreme speed to leave the area. The flaming sword shining with electric light was thrown directly in the direction of Xingyo by Binghua, and then Binghua immediately changed his magnetic field to avoid being affected by his own attack. The next moment, I heard thunder that resounded throughout the heaven and earth. The thunderbolts as thick as buckets struck down at the same time as if they were attracted by something, and then converged into a blue-white thunderbolt that was several meters thick and struck down from the sky. The lightning was so fast that Xingyo had no time to dodge. In an instant, his vision turned blue and white, his whole body was numb and stinging, and he was frozen in place, unable to move. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifen Si Wang. Chapter 133. The dazzling blue-white thunder exploded, and the burst of light overwhelmed all the light between heaven and earth, like a giant flash bomb exploding. But this flash of light came and went quickly, just like fireworks that bloomed in an instant. On the ground, which was charred and pitted with a hint of electric arc, a figure with charcoal black hair standing on end, half kneeling and holding a gun, appeared in the sight of everyone watching here. Xingyo trembled and tried to stand up, when suddenly a voice sounded in the air. Kesha, Liang Bing. Attack according to the agreed-upon plan. Liang Bing, who was standing on a towering rock not far away, shouted understood, raised his hands and pulled them to both sides, his big eyes staring intently in the direction of Xingyo, with a strong look of excitement flashing in his eyes. Kesha came to the sky on the side of Xingyo holding a silver flaming sword with dense sacred language engraved on it, and raised the sword in front of her, and then her eyes became empty. Then Binghua and Liang Bing heard an ethereal voice sounding in the dark communication. The formula for driving stellar energy in the atmosphere is being imported, the dark energy ratio is being calculated, and the flame bombing is being prepared. Liang Bing, be careful not to let Xingyo escape. I'm going to delay for a while, waiting for Kesha to prepare the flame bombing. After Binghua finished speaking in the dark communication, he swooped down in the direction of Xingyo, and took out a flaming sword with 2 columns of sacred language engraved on the blade in his hand, specializing in dark energy-driven swords. Don't worry, leave it to me. I guarantee that he won't be able to move 100 meters away from where he is. Liang Bing's tone was full of confidence, and his next actions also showed where her confidence came from. Several slender silver cones with sacred words engraved on them floated 100 meters around Xingyo, and then the inscriptions on them simultaneously emitted a red glow. Just listen to Liang Bing reminding Binghua in the dark communication. I will use a space cage to trap him next. Binghua, as long as you can prevent him from concentrating on solving the space cage I set up, he will not be able to escape. In an instant, there was an inexplicable change in the air. The 100-meter radius area around Xingyo seemed to be isolated from the real space, giving those who watched it a sense of misplaced illusion. And before the space cage that Liang Bing had prepared for a long time closed, Binghua had already rushed in. Xingyo shook off the black charcoal from his body, yelled, picked up the battle gun and charged forward, but after advancing 100 meters, the battle gun could not move an inch, as if the power on the battle gun had disappeared. Same. Xingyo refused to give up, and the dark energy clung to the war gun and suddenly turned into a beam of light and blasted out. However, as soon as the beam left the gun head, it scattered in all directions and disappeared invisible. TCH, it's another little trick of the Academy of Sciences that decomposes energy. Don't think you can trap me, I'll break it open for you right now. Xingyo flew upside down for a few meters and immediately started his genetic engine. Relying on the powerful computing power of the first-generation divine body, he began to forcibly break the space cage erected by Liang Bing. The space cage is made up of 6 mirror space generators, which can evenly distribute the internal attacks on the surrounding dislocated space barriers. It cannot be broken if it is not a sudden burst of energy that exceeds the norm. However, this kind of space cage is not without its shortcomings. It cannot isolate the information from the dark plane and break the intrusion. This can be said to be a common problem of most weapons and shipboard systems today. The reason why the Angel civilization does not use large energy weapons or peripheral armors such as mechas is because dark information intrusion is pervasive. If you drive a weapon such as a mecha on the battlefield that requires the installation of an intelligent operating system, it will be a disaster if the system is accidentally invaded by the enemy and manipulated to attack friendly forces, so cold weapons have gradually become mainstream. At the same time, the Angel's tough body and super high mobility combined with the cold weapon tactics of melee combat also made many civilizations at war with it very difficult, so long-range weapons were gradually eliminated. Liang Bing, who was maintaining the space cage, immediately felt a huge flow of data pouring into the space cage generator she had set, violently cracking the firewall she had set up. Damn! A crack with no technical content at all. The tone was full of helplessness and a hint of envy, but Liang Bing believed that Binghua would not continue to crack Xingyo. A piercing scream came, and Xingyo noticed that something was approaching at high speed. He immediately stopped trying to figure out the gun in his hand, turned around, and raised it. There was a harsh clashing sound of gold and iron, followed by a flash of fire. It seemed that due to the fierce collision between the sword blade and the gun head, the air swept around like a spreading torrent. Binghua Ying's lips were slightly open, revealing the silver teeth that were biting together up and down. She held the flaming sword with both hands and pressed down hard. However, it was obvious that the gap in super warrior levels would not change due to Binghua's will. Xingyo shook Binghua's gun and sent Binghua flying away. Then without stopping, he used his war gun to receive a forward thrust. Binghua's body flashed with lightning, his wings retracted, and he jumped upwards like a straight climbing fighter jet. Xingyo, who was holding the gun forward, saw the sky in front of him. The dark energy gathered and he raised the gun to the top of his head without hesitation and then pulled it. Binghua, who was about to attack from above his head, was directly forced back by the drawn spear tip. Binghua did not dare to trade his wounds for a gun because it was not cost-effective. At the critical moment, the white wings on his back spread out to stop his falling body from the sneak attack. Then Binghua's eyes narrowed in the air and she did a backward somersault, and the silver-edged and black-backed war spear almost touched Binghua's face. All this happened too fast. Although Xingyo used a long weapon, his attacks were connected extremely quickly. Although several attacks were dodged by Binghua, Xingyo did not slow down his attack rhythm because of this. Fall, another blow is already on the way. Binghua relied on the electromagnetic ejection provided by his first-generation thunder tactics to ignore conventional movement methods and used his specially made dark energy-driven flaming sword to look for opportunities around Xingyo. The flaming sword with its dazzling red light seemed to be burning at any moment, leaving criss-crossing red sword marks in the air, as if it was about to split Xingyo into pieces. However, Xingyo was not a weakling. He easily broke through Binghua's sword curtain with a swing of his war gun, and chased Binghua around in the space cage. Because Xingyo's combat data was familiar to Binghua in advance, Binghua and Xingyo, who were only third-generation warriors, were fighting each other for a while. Strictly speaking, most of Binghua's current attack methods are restricted. Due to the space cage, Binghua cannot use his own weapon arsenal to exert all his strength. He can only use the flaming sword to fight Xingyo. This makes Binghua felt a little regretful. The collision between the weapons was extremely fierce. In nearly a minute, Binghua fought with Xingyo in aerial dogfights at least 100 times. Following Liang Bing's reminder in the communication channel and the cancellation of the space cage, Binghua instantly turned into a blue light and shadow and retreated, leaving only Xingyo standing there in a daze. Suddenly, dozens of flaming swords shot out from the direction of Binghua 100 meters away, blocking all the hiding spaces around Xingyo. At the same time, there was a sound of piercing the sky above Xingyo's head. After Xingyo danced with the war gun in his hand and flew away several flaming swords, he looked up and saw Kesha holding a surging sword in both hands. The flaming sword with dazzling red light rushed towards him. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifen Si Wang. Chapter 134. The dense sacred language on the silver sword of flames all burst out with a dazzling red light at this moment, and the inside was a burning red that seemed to melt the sword body. At this moment, Kesha is like the legendary god holding a sword of fire, destroying all enemies in front of her. Because Xinghua was restrained by Binghua's attack, Xingyo did not move from his original position, so Xingyo could only resist Kesha's seemingly uneasy attack. Xingyo shouted loudly, and the dark energy surged on the war gun, dyeing the dark gun body orange. Then he raised the war gun, and sent the tip of the gun upwards above his head to pierce the air and stab Kesha. Facing the oncoming spear point, Kesha did not dodge. Her face dyed red by the light emitted by the sword of the sun was extremely calm, because Kesha believed that Binghua would complete all the steps in the plan. A harsh blast of air sounded, and the whip-like red abyss sword wrapped around the battle spear thrust out by Xingyo. As Binghua's hand holding the sword hilt pulled back, the angle at which the battle spear thrust out instantly shifted. With the wings on her back fanning vigorously, Kesha pointed the flaming sword straight at Xingyo. Her eyes were wide open and her blonde hair was flying in the wind. Under the scorching red light, Kesha was extremely beautiful at this moment. Binghua and Liang Bing both had their gazes firmly locked in the direction of Kesha and Xingyo. They were nervous and worried, and their hearts were raised high. Xingyo had no time to change his moves, so he could only raise his arm and cover his forearm with dark energy, hoping to withstand the flaming sword in Kesha's hand. The metal arm guard was cut open by the sword blade in an instant, and then the skin and flesh of Xingyo's forearm were cut. A sharp pain was transmitted into Xingyo's brain, and he almost screamed in pain. However, Xingyo also successfully used his forearm to deflect Kesha's sword blade, guiding the tip of the sword that was originally aimed at the head to the shoulder position. Poof! The edge of the flaming sword pierced Xingyo's shoulder and was blocked by the bones. The name Flame Bomb flashed in Kesha's mind. In an instant, the inscription on the flaming sword became brighter, and the red light surged along the blade and was directed into Xingyo's wound. The burst of shining light swallowed up part of Kesha and Xingyo's bodies, making Liang Bing and Binghua unable to see. Know what's really going on inside. But a second later, the two suddenly separated, and Kesha was swept away by Xingyo's whip leg. Binghua, who was holding the red abyss sword, felt a pulling force along the blade of the sword. With a flick of his wrist, the whip-like blade wrapped around the Xingyo war gun spread out and returned to the shape of a long sword. Xingyo flapped his wings away from Binghua and Kesha, and landed on a pointed rock with a look of pain on his face. Binghua, Kesha, and Liangbing came together and were suspended 100 meters away from Xingyo. Among them, Binghua was running the micro-wormhole at full power, and more than 30 flaming swords were gathering momentum in the weapons arsenal on the other side. Ready to go. However, Xingyo's state was very wrong at the moment. In the wound on his shoulder, scorching red energy was surging, as if a piece of red-hot steel was embedded in his flesh and blood. Small crimson cracks began to spread around the wound. Xingyo looked at these cracks with a horrified expression and yelled in panic in his heart. "Solve it for me! Solve it for me quickly! It is being solved. The energy composition is being analyzed, the analysis has been successful. The energy is a mixture of stellar energy and dark energy. The ratio formula is being analyzed." However, it was obvious that relying solely on the passive analysis of Xingyo's own gene engine took too long. The slow progress of the gene engine analysis made Xingyo feel like it was falling into an ice cellar. Because at this moment, the crimson cracks have spread to Xingyo's face, and his whole body feels like he is being burned by millions of degrees of heat, and traces of grey ash-like dust are floating up from the cracks. Binghua looked a little frowned and surprised, so he asked Kesha on the side what was going on, and Kesha's answer was very simple and easy to understand. "I mixed stellar energy and dark energy and penetrated it into his body through the flaming sword. According to my estimation, he will not be able to solve it in a short time and will have to wait for death." At the same time, Kesha was also glad that the wound was on the shoulder on the torso. If it only scratched the arm, Xingyo would have to be more decisive and give up one arm to make this attack ineffective. After a few seconds passed, most of Xingyo's torso was covered with dense red cracks. As Xingyo fell to his knees as if he had lost all strength, his body finally reached its limit and exploded with a bang. The blinding light and violent shockwave rushed out of a small basin for thousands of meters around the ground. When everything cleared, only half of Xingyo's body was left in the middle of the pit. Binghua looked at the scene thoughtfully. She could only understand how hard the first-generation divine body was after fighting Xingyo at close range. Even the flaming sword blessed with dark energy could only make a small cut in Xingyo's body, and its muscles were tougher than the Te alloy. However, Kesha's firebombing reminded Binghua that any invincible defense would be destroyed by attacks from within. Xingyo's fate just proved the meaning of this sentence. Boom! A deafening muffled sound was heard, and Binghua turned to look. 4 Tiangong flagships belonging to the Tiangong group broke through the clouds and came up with 4 minimal Star Destroyer strikes, which almost penetrated the shield of the Skyblade battleship. The dense Tiangong warriors also followed closely and began to break through the atmosphere. For a while, the sky was filled with meteors burning with fire. He-11, who did not participate in the battle and maintained dark communication shielding in the Skyblade, also stopped the dark energy shielding at this time, because the enemies had already attacked the door. All Skyblade battleships are ready to fight. The 3 Skyblade warships and the other 2 Coalition Celestial warships quickly adjusted their angles and orientations, and then dense energy attacks shot out from all parts of the ship's body. In an instant, the sky was plunged into a sea of fire due to the crossfire of 9 behemoths. Even the angel warriors with ultra-high mobility were like ants under the flood at this moment, being mercilessly devoured by the aftermath of the diffuse energy explosion. Binghua watched this scene and sighed that Huaye's side discovered it so quickly, but the most important thing now is to quickly surround and kill Huaye before the Tiangong side's rescue team reaches the surface. Kesha and Liangbing had the same idea as Binghua, and flew towards the battlefield between Huaye and Hergras with a flutter of wings. Huaye stood with his sword in his hand, the armor on his body was covered with signs of damage, and even his face was bruised, But at this moment Hwaye was extremely excited. It seems that you have tried so hard to kill me. Now that my soldiers have arrived, please don't run away with your tail between your legs. Facing Hwaye's words, Haglas and Hwaxiang looked serious and solemn. Hwaye was several times stronger than the last time they fought. The reason why Hwaye hasn't been captured for so long is not only because of the extremely sharp king sword in Hwaye's hand. It's because Hwaye has endless methods and his combat experience has skyrocketed in the battle. However, the methods of the two of them seem to be somewhat restrained by Hwaye. In addition, there are no weapons that can kill with one hit, which makes the battle become anxious. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifen Si Wang. Chapter 135. What should I do? Is this just a failure? Hergras, who had a bad temper, clenched his fists loudly and was unwilling to waste such a great opportunity. Hwaxiang is also unwilling to give in, but he is rational and knows that continuing to delay is just a waste of time. Hegratha's strongest hand-to-hand combat and the defensive power of the divine body blessed by dark energy were not enough in front of the Ansu Silver King sword in Hwaye's hand, and the fight was at a loss. The same goes for Hwaxiang. Although his swordsmanship is good, what he is proficient in is that stars can drive long-range strikes. After Hwaye can use gravity drive to distort his attack trajectory, his biggest advantage is gone. The original plan of Hwaxiang and Haglas was to suppress Hwaye from a distance and then find an opportunity to kill Hwaye. But reality is often full of uncertainties, and plans often fail to keep up with changes. Hwaye had already taken precautions against the attack methods of the two, and coupled with his growth in the battle, the two sides gradually ended up in a stalemate. And the support from Tiangong became the straw that broke the camel's back. The confidence that Haglas and Hwaxiang had in killing Hwaye gradually began to crack, and it was out of control. While expressing his frustration at being besieged, Hwaye suddenly received a communication from Chen Xing. King, are you okay? I will lead all the Tiangong warriors I can mobilize to support the king. Very good, I am indeed right about you. If Suri, and others had a mind like yours, I would have wiped out all the rebels long ago. Hwaye did not hesitate in his words of praise, and his tense nerves relaxed slightly. King, please issue the king's order. Now all the Tiangong warriors are waiting for dispatch. Chen Xing, who was on the Tiangong flagship, was not complacent at all. He was very sensible and did not issue orders without authorization, but gave up this right to Hwaye. Warriors, attack me with all your strength. The super gene level of those with outstanding performance will be increased by 1 level. Although Hwaye was on the surface, his voice spread throughout the sky, making the Tiangong warriors' eyes glow red. This was no simple reward. The benefits of increasing the super gene level by 1 level are great, not only the improvement of strength, but also the accompanying benefits of lifespan, status, and other improvements. Just when Hwaye was triumphant, a scream that tore through the air came from behind. A dozen black flame swords shot out with long after images, and only a few superimposed rumbling and muffled sounds were heard. When Hwaye came out, the place where Hwaye stood was covered by the raised dust. Haglas and Hwaxiang looked up and saw a beautiful black-haired female angel pointing her sword at Hwaye, and continuously fired long swords from her body towards Hwaye's position. They knew this figure, it was none other than the 4 angel kings who were looking for cooperation with them, including the Sky Sword King Binghua. At the same time, Kesha and Liangbing also rushed past Binghua towards Hwaye's position, which was obscured by dust. King Tianye, King Tianlai, let's attack Hwaye together. Kesha's voice reminded the 2 angel kings, Haglas and Hwalai, that now was not the time to stand there and look at the female angel. In an instant, the 2 kings understood what Kesha meant. They wanted to besiege Hwaye together. Although I was a little unhappy that the female angel intervened in the battle with Hwaye, I couldn't tolerate the 2 angel kings showing their tempers now. Hergras roared angrily, his muscles bulging, and he rushed out with a roar like a cannonball. Huasiang followed closely behind him with a sword. Seeing this, Binghua immediately stopped ejecting the long sword from the wormhole and instead swooped down with Qi Yuan in hand. In an instant, Huaye was surrounded by 5 angel kings from 5 directions. Chen Xing, who was always paying attention to the situation on Huaye's battlefield, saw this scene and immediately ordered the Tiangong flagship to turn its gun muzzle and start accumulating energy to carry out continuous fire coverage strikes towards Huaye's position. The male angel in charge of the firepower was still hesitant. After all, he was firing at the king he was loyal to. If he was held accountable afterwards, he would definitely die miserably. Just fire. If the king holds you accountable afterwards, I will bear all the consequences. Yes, Commander. The male angel breathed a sigh of relief and began to carry out Chen Xing's order. One of the celestial battleships that was exchanging fire with the Skyblade battleship began to turn its hull angle. The battlefield below was not idle during this period. Huaye was lying in a pit full of swords and was very angry. He was about to get up and curse when a strong figure appeared in his sight. After uttering a curse word, Huaye rolled awkwardly, and a battle axe was embedded in the ground next to his head. Huaye had been fighting with Herglas for so long, knowing that he would face Herglas' fist that was bigger than a sandbag next, so he raised the royal sword tightly in his hand. The straight punch thrown by Hercules quickly retracted, and he instead used an elbow strike to hit the blade of the king's sword aimed at his chest. He did not want to suddenly have a hole in his hand. The energy splashed into the air and exploded. Huaye's erect sword was deflected, but Herglas was also kicked away by Huaye, who was lying on the ground. Huaye took the opportunity to roll over, and quickly stood up and raised his sword above his head, just in time to block Huasiang's Wang sword. But as a saying goes, when the house leaks, it rains all night, and the 2 piercing sounds from behind made Huaye want to curse. Kesha and Liangbing each struck hard on Huaye's back with their swords, causing Huaye to let out a painful scream. Hearing Huaye's screams, Liangbing's face flushed with excitement, and he kept moving his hands, slashing repeatedly with the flaming sword filled with dark energy, while cursing in his mouth. "You scumbag, let you bully my sister, let you tease me every time we meet." The flaming sword slashed at Huaye's back. Apart from splitting off the armor on his body, it could only make bloody wounds, but could not seriously injure Huaye. And Kesha didn't have time to prepare the flame bombing, because if she was accidentally caught by Huaye, she might be killed on the spot. But seeing the frost on Kesha's delicate face and the joy in the depths of her eyes, it showed that Kesha was also extremely relieved at this moment. Huaye felt that he had never been so aggrieved as at this moment. He was hurt by Liangbing and Kesha, whom he regarded as playthings. He roared and shook Huasiang away. He turned around and slashed with Wang Jian. But before that, Kesha, who couldn't see anything wrong, had already pulled Liangbing back some distance, avoiding the sword blade that was slashing horizontally. Just as Huaye was about to step forward and continue the attack, a big hand like a cattail fan grabbed Huaye's head, and then pinned it to the ground with a bang. Herglas grinned, and raised the battle axe in his right hand, ready to chop it down, but suddenly Herglas felt a chill in his right ankle, and then a sharp pain came from it. It turned out that when Huaye was pushed to the ground by Herglas, he swung his sword randomly and cut off the left calf of Herglas. I have to say that Huaye was lucky enough. Then Huaye broke free from Hercules' big hand with a strong effort, jumped on the spot and prepared to fly into the sky to get rid of the situation on the ground being besieged by several angel kings. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 136. Before the angel wings behind Huaye fully unfolded, a scream that ripped through the air suddenly came. The silver and red abyss sword struck like a long whip, hitting Hua Ye's shoulder with a snap, and instantly whipped the jumping Hua Ye away. Binghua flapped her wings and came with the red abyss sword in hand. Seeing that Hua Ye flew away with one blow, she was unforgiving. She held the red abyss and swung it towards Hua Ye, who was flying upside down. The slender Chaiwan sword was like a poisonous snake that traced an arc and then wrapped around Hua Ye's neck. Binghua felt happy and pulled the Chaiwan sword back while retracting the extended blade. Hua Ye felt bad, his neck was hurting from the sliding blades, and he quickly reached forward with his left hand to grasp the Chaiwan sword wrapped around his neck. Then he pulled his right hand hard and raised the king's sword. Binghua's body was violently pulled in the direction of Hua Ye. In terms of strength, Binghua was no match for Hua Ye. Seeing that the king's sword that could easily cut off the calf of Haglath was about to fall, Binghua loosened his grip on the Chaiwan sword and quickly retreated to avoid the king's sword that fell from Hua Ye's hand. Hua Ye did not pursue, but first untied the red abyss sword from around his neck, threw it downwards, touched the neck that had just been cut by the sword, and looked at the bright red on his fingers. With a ferocious expression, he looked at Binghua, who had drawn out a thin sword again. I haven't settled the score with you for that sword attack decades ago. Today you have left a deep impression on me. When you fall into my hands, I will let you know what despair is. Hua Ye's tone was extremely cold, and the coldness emanating from it seemed to freeze the air. Then I'll wait until you catch me, but I guess you won't have this chance in your life, because you will die here today. Binghua smiled nonchalantly and glanced at the Wang sword in Hua Ye's hand, feeling a trace of fire flash in his heart. Binghua turned sideways and raised Lang Guang, the thin sword in his hand, and opened his left hand towards Hua Ye in a posture that was conducive to thrusting. Start the light and shadow driver, load the third default multi-light and shadow refraction strategy. In Binghua's mind, he activated an algorithmic formula that had long been loaded into the gene engine. The next moment, Binghua's rapier thrust forward, and his whole body turned into a blue-white stream of light and shot out. Hua Ye was not afraid to flap his wings to meet him. He raised the Wang sword with one hand, but Binghua's whole body suddenly exploded and turned into 7 identical Binghua generals. Hua Ye was a little overwhelmed. Surrounded in the middle. The next moment, the 7 Binghuas raised their rapiers together, and suddenly blue lightning appeared all over their bodies, and they stabbed Hua Ye in the middle. Hua Ye couldn't tell which one was real and which one was fake. Even if he introduced the gravity drive, it was too late and he could only randomly choose a direction to attack. The Wang sword in Hua Ye's hand easily passed through Binghua's body, which was stabbing in front of him with the sword. Hua Ye's heart felt cold for a moment, and then there was pain in his right shoulder. Hua Ye finally knew in which direction Binghua was, and quickly turned to the right while slashing Wang Jian in an attempt to force Binghua back. In order to avoid the slashing sword edge, Binghua quickly stepped back, then his whole body flashed with lightning, and a huge thrust acted on himself, taking advantage of the gap between Hua Ye's sword to move forward and strike faster than he could retreat. The slender mist of light was bathed in the dancing thunder light like a slender lightning needle. In Binghua's hand, the continuous thrusts were too fast, causing a large number of phantoms to appear in Hua Ye's eyes, just like Binghua had 7, 8 arms are the same. There was an undetectable sound of penetration, and 8 bloody holes 2 fingers wide appeared on Hua Ye's chest. Originally, Binghua wanted to stab Hua Ye's disgusting face, and also stabbed the eyes that had been looking at her disgustingly before, but no chance was found. Hua Ye is not stupid either. He is very aware of his own advantages and disadvantages. As a second-generation divine body, as long as his head is not chopped off, he can still play. If his brain is pierced, he will be cold. The moment confidence blocked Binghua's thrust, he immediately raised his sword and blocked his face tightly. Binghua raised his 2 thin black eyebrows, and the stiff feeling coming from the tip of the sword made Binghua understand that his stabbing did not hurt Hua-Ye's internal organs at all. Although the bloody holes looked scary, they were just skin injuries. As soon as his mind moved, Binghua immediately moved around Hua-Ye's flanks, preparing to destroy Hua-Ye's angel wings first, causing him to lose his ability to fly and maneuver to prevent him from escaping here. Hua-Ye also turned around following Binghua's movements. After Binghua's attack just now, Hua-Ye already knew that as long as he protected his face, Binghua could not kill him, so he gave up his defense and seized the opportunity to stab Wang Jian fiercely, but instead Binghua flipped around in the air and nimbly dodged it. Kesha, Liang Bing, Herglass, and Hua Xiang all around them felt that they had no room to intervene when they saw this scene, so they waited for the opportunity. Binghua also discovered that Hua-Ye could clearly see her movements, but her body seemed to be lagging behind due to lack of exercise. But Binghua couldn't find a chance to kill Hua-Ye if this continued, and once again relied on speed to dodge the Wang Sword Queen slashed by Hua-Ye. Binghua's eyes lit up. Since his own weapons were not sharp enough, all he had to do was find a weapon that was sharp enough. Binghua, who was in extreme speed, suddenly made a sudden move. Hua-Ye was overjoyed. Wang Jian stabbed straight out in an instant, but Binghua gently stepped aside to avoid it. The thin sword flashed across the back of Hua-Ye's hand holding the sword hilt. Hua-Ye, who was focusing on Binghua, suddenly felt a pain in his hand holding Wang Jian, and subconsciously retracted his hand, but he reacted immediately, but it was already too late. Binghua looked excited, raised his rapier, stabbed hard along the tiny gap between Hua-Ye's palm and the hilt, and then stirred the sword body. Hua-Ye was in pain and uncontrollably let go of his hand due to the subconscious reaction of his nerves. The next moment, Binghua grasped the fallen King Hua-Ye sword with his left hand. Seeing Wang Jian fall into Binghua's hands, Hua-Ye felt a sense of fear in his heart, the fear of death, and the time around him seemed to slow down. Hua-Ye could clearly see the excitement and joy on Binghua's face, as well as the Silver King sword that was slowly raised and aimed at his forehead to chop it down. Hua-Ye found that his movements were as slow as Binghua's and became extremely slow. He could only raise his right hand in the hope of blocking the king's sword. At the same time, from the corner of his eye, Hua-Ye spotted countless lasers in the air from the side. The beam coming. Binghua let out a low shout. She had already foreseen the result of the sword strike, but in the end Hua-Ye reacted and put his right arm across his head. The most cutting-edge weapon of the angel civilization, the Ansu Silver King sword that only the King of Angels could wield effortlessly cut through the metal arm guard worn by Hua-Ye, then the skin and muscles and finally the extremely hard bones. The silver sword light flashed and a forearm flew up. In the blink of an eye, Binghua stabbed forward with another strike, and then raised the tip of the sword. A piece of armor was broken into pieces mixed with little blood splashes. Boom! The dense orange beams bombarded, fell to the ground and exploded. The rising fire cloud instantly covered a kilometer radius, and the spreading shockwave instantly rushed Binghua and Hua-Ye away. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 137. The air vibrated violently, and conical beams of light with long tails shot from the distant sky. It fell to the ground and blasted out a large crater of tens of meters in the earth. At this time, the firepower from the celestial warship was covered. Although it was not the main gun, it was still enough firepower to destroy an ordinary city with an aerospace-grade civilization. Binghua was pinned to the ground by the energy reaction generated by the explosion, unable to move. The violent vibrations made her feel extremely uncomfortable, and the firepower covering attack showed no sign of stopping. Binghua could only hold Hua-Ye's king's sword tightly, huddled in a pit that was blasted out, and began to figure out the king's sword in his hand to turn it into his own. Occasionally, he was unlucky enough to be in the center of the beam's landing point. Or nearby, it can only passively withstand the power of a naval gun explosion. However, it is a bit difficult to kill the third-generation warriors with ordinary naval guns. The first point is that the target is too small, making it difficult to carry out sustained and accurate strikes. The second point is that the third-generation warriors can withstand the bombardment of ordinary naval guns head-on. Looking at the direction, it seemed that the attack was coming from Huaye's Tiangong flagship. This made Binghua feel extremely angry, because the opportunity to kill Huaye was lost like this. It is estimated that it will be difficult to have such an opportunity next time. Based on Binghua's understanding of Huaye, after this experience of almost falling on the battlefield, the chance of catching Huaye next time is infinitely close to zero. The fire coverage from the sky lasted for more than 10 minutes, and the ground was flattened to a depth of more than 10 meters. This area of several thousand meters was filled with continuous and alternating large pits, as if they had just fallen. Like a meteor shower. The disgraced Binghua crawled out of the mud and took a look at the black ash stained on his body and hair. Not to mention how awkward it felt, he suddenly felt the urge to leave the battlefield and wash himself off. But these are not important. What is important is that Huaye, escorted by hundreds of male angels, is beginning to climb towards the sky. Binghua was about to pick up his sword and rush forward to intercept, but was stopped by Kesha's voice on the communication channel. Binghua, don't chase after them. Those are the Imperial Guards under Huaye. You alone can't break through their blockade. Let's retreat first. Huaye's other generals are rushing here. If we are blocked here, we will be very passive. Binghua clenched his fists and looked unwilling to give in. He stomped his feet in a ventive manner, then turned around and flew towards the direction of the Skyblade battleship. He had no intention of saying hello to Hegrath and Huaxiang. Although the coalition forces and the female angel side made a plan to surround and kill Huaye, and they cooperated well, the two sides were not allies, and no one knew whether the other side would do something evil. Now that the plan failed, it was time for each to go back to his own home. After picking up the three angel queens Binghua, Kesha, and Liangbing, the three heavenly blade warships on the female angel side left the battlefield without hesitation and began to evacuate the star system. Chen Xing on Huaye's side did not choose to pursue him, because Huaye was too seriously injured and was shouting to retreat quickly. So Tianren was allowed to leave without any obstruction, while Heglas and Huaxiang took over most of the legions under the former Skyfall King, and at the same time reorganized the legions to attack the celestial flagship fleet of Hui Group. Binghua didn't know the outcome of the battle, because she had already left this battlefield with the Skyblade and merged with the Skyblade battleships that had retreated from the other three battlefields. Then the Skyblade fleet retreated back to the Hera star system and began to rest on the spot, and the originally abandoned palace was reactivated again. I'm telling you. Binghua is so awesome on the battlefield. She can be on a par with Xingyo on her own. Just the sight of weapons colliding can dazzle my eyes and scare me to death. Liangbing was dancing and bragging to He-11 about Binghua's deeds in the plan to kill Huaye. He-11, who had seen the battle video, still listened very seriously. Binghua felt inexplicably ashamed as she listened to all the boastful words coming out of Liangbing's mouth, as if she could kick Xingyo and tear Huaye apart. If he was really that powerful, he wouldn't be sitting here. He would have led the Heavenly Sword Legion into the Celestial City to defeat the foreign king. Don't mind Binghua. Liangbing is such an angel. She finally achieved revolutionary results. Let her be happy for a while. Kesha smiled, patted Binghua's shoulder and comforted her as she buried her face in her arms, and then looked at Hexi's guardian angel surrounding Liangbing with soft eyes. Kesha, this is so embarrassing. When did I become so powerful and I didn't even know it happened? Binghua raised her head slightly and protested to Kesha, asking Kesha to take care of Liangbing's big mouth, but Kesha didn't take it seriously and just sat next to Binghua and continued to look at the female angels a few meters away. Compared to He-11, who just nodded in agreement, the reactions of the surrounding guardian angels were exaggerated. They all looked amazed, and no one doubted the authenticity of the information Liang Bing said. Although I know there are some exaggerations, Hua Ye's plan to siege this time really killed one of Hua Ye's generals. Especially the last battle with Hua Ye. The scumbag Hua Ye was beaten by Binghua until he could only scream for mercy. In the end, one of his hands was cut off by Binghua. I don't know who the scumbag was in the end. Fire off the cannons indiscriminately, or else I will show you Hua Ye's scumbag head today. Liang Bing had one foot on the chair, without any sense of being the Queen of Angels. It was as if she was chatting and bragging with her sisters, without giving any sense of status difference to the surrounding guardian angels. Although Liang Bing's words are sometimes vulgar and a bit insignificant, he can get along with any angel, which is something Binghua, Kesha, and Hexi don't have. Hexi's calm personality, Binghua's reputation for being good at attacking, and Kesha's majestic temperament, these 3 points create an invisible barrier between them and ordinary female angels. Ordinary female angels always feel a sense of status gap when getting along with Binghua and others. Only the guardian angels who often get along are slightly better. The female angel's withdrawal did not have much impact on the outcome of the battle. Because Hua Ye lost one of his generals and was injured himself, the Hua Ye group's desire to fight was not strong. On the contrary, although the allied forces also lost an angel king, the remaining Hercules, Huasiang, and Huaji were all decisive in their actions. The coalition forces pressed all their regiments forward, and took advantage of Hua Ye's injury to directly launch a general attack on the Hua Ye group. The decisive battle between millions of legions was staged in a small star system, comparable to the bloodiest battlefield meat grinder. Nearly 1 million angel warriors were reduced to withered bones in this battle, and this unknown star system was completely removed from the universe, becoming a barren star system with only one satellite. The battle ended with the Hui group's defeat, a situation that Binghua and Kesha expected. When the high-end combat power of the two sides is not much different, the number becomes the straw that breaks the camel's back. Hua Ye was defeated and retreated to Tiancheng. The coalition forces were in the limelight for a while. As for the female angel, no news was spread at all. If both warring parties didn't know that the female angel was involved in the siege and killing of Hua Ye, they would probably think that the female angel was here. Those who travel a lot are the ones who make soy sauce. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 138. But in terms of harvesting female angels, it is definitely a big profit, just because Binghua captured the Ansu Silver King sword in Hua Ye's hand. The value of this sword alone is more valuable than killing an angel king. As the most cutting-edge weapon of the angel civilization, most of the top leaders of the angel civilization only know its legend, but have never been able to see its true appearance. Now this Wang sword, which exudes silver light, is completely silver white, and has exquisite carvings, is suspended in He 11's laboratory. Binghua did not participate in the cracking of Wang Jian because the process was boring. She preferred to wait for He 11 to crack the materials and manufacturing process of Ansuyin Wang Jian and arm herself with ready-made technology. However, Binghua was not idle either. Apart from occasionally communicating with Kesha, Liang Bing, and He 11, she continued to study her weapon skills. In the grass outside the Grand Palace, Binghua is studying the flying sword weapon module that has not made much progress. More than a dozen long swords with silver bodies and red blades were flying in the air as Binghua's fingers moved, forming a sword array that interspersed and rotated with each other from time to time. However, the speed was a bit slow, and it was estimated that even the third-generation warriors could not be strangled. He couldn't keep up with Binghua's current fighting rhythm. Angel Ran was also practicing swordsmanship on the side, and Binghua would sometimes be distracted and give some guidance. Ran, your wrist holding the sword is too stiff. You need to leave some spare strength so that you can change your moves at any time. Otherwise, it will be like the last time you and He Chui competed. After He Chui figured out the swordsmanship style, he was a little sold out. If I give you a loophole, you will be fooled. Binghua distractedly controlled a dozen flying swords in the sky, and reminded Ranzu a few meters away. As for Angel Lan, who always likes to follow Binghua, it was because he 11 wanted to crack the Ansu Silver King Sword's technology as soon as possible, so he let her borrow it. Liangbing and Kesha's right-wing bodyguards were similar, and they were both lent by He 11 to participate in the plan to crack the Ansu Silver King Sword. As for Xiang Ran and other military commanders under the Angel Kings, they were free because they had no war to be busy with. In order to regain her face, Angel Ran has been diligently practicing swordsmanship for a while. Even the regiment's dispatch is a remote command. Ran is looking forward to competing with He Zui again. Binghua watched Angel Ran practicing his sword skills and shook his head slightly. Even though she reminded him clearly, Ran still couldn't get rid of the habit that was engraved in his bones. Unlike Binghua, Ran's swordsmanship foundation is very average. It is completely a unique battlefield swordsmanship formed by fighting on the battlefield again and again. His moves are wide open and close, and every blow is close to full power. Because in a large-scale melee, if you don't kill the enemy in front of you, the enemy will kill you. Only by trying your best can you survive. Forget it, Ran, it won't work like this. It seems that only actual combat can make you progress. I'm sorry, Queen Ran retracted her sword and looked a little downcast. Binghua also felt that she had spoken too harshly and quickly expressed relief. Ran, you are already very good now. You are only over 200 years old. You are very young. There will be a lot of time in the future and there is still a lot of room for improvement. Binghua told Ran not to worry, but she forgot that she was less than 200 years old. Such words coming out of her mouth gave people an inexplicable heartbreaking feeling. Binghua stopped controlling the flying swords in the air and took them back into the micro-wormhole, leaving only 2 for training. Ran, since you can't correct your habits by practicing alone, I will control these 2 flying swords to spar with you later. You have to be careful. If you are accidentally touched, it will be very painful. Binghua also became interested. It was a bit boring to practice alone all the time. It was better to use the flying sword module to practice with Ran to relieve the boredom caused by studying. Binghua sat on a brown rock protruding from the ground with her legs crossed. A dozen meters away was Angel Ran, who was holding a flaming sword in both hands and had a serious look on his face. Let's begin. Queen, I'm ready. Binghua raised his right hand and raised a finger as a reminder. Then I start to attack. As soon as he finished speaking, the 2 long swords that had been quietly placed on the lawn suddenly shot out. Angel Ran's expression condensed, and the flaming sword easily knocked away the long sword that was fired at him, but there was more than one long sword, and the other one was hidden behind the first long sword in a bad way by Binghua. This time, Ran was very embarrassed. The swing of his sword was a little too wide just now, which meant that he had no time to block with his sword and could only dodge sideways. Binghua just moved his fingers to control 2 flying swords to attack Ran. However, even though Binghua could easily predict Ran's dodge and attack movements, the command delay and the flying trajectory of the sword gave Binghua a sense of control. Play online games with a latency of over 150. But Binghua's stubborn temper has also risen, and today she still has to use 2 flying swords to defeat Ranke. The sound of clanking collisions continued. Binghua bit down and concentrated on the 2 flying swords, not even noticing Kesha's arrival. Ran was also nervous. She found that the 2 flying swords around her seemed to be in the hands of 2 angels who were very familiar with her. Every attack was aimed at her blind spot, or was stuck in her old power. When new power is not born. If Fijian hadn't been too fast, Ran would have probably been defeated long ago instead of struggling to hold on like he is now. Binghua was a little unwilling. The opportunity to hit Ran just now was missed due to the delay in command transmission. Binghua, don't bully Ran, She's almost reaching her limit. Kesha suddenly interrupted, causing Binghua, who was immersed in controlling the flying sword to attack Ran, to wake up and secretly say something careless. Kesha, I'm obviously going to win. Although he said this, Binghua still took back the long sword suspended in the air. Ran was also panting and stood up to rest with his sword in his hand. Look at how you controlled the flying sword so flexibly just now. How did you do it? I just used the magnetic field of the metal itself. I installed a magnetic field response device in the longsword in advance. It can change the intensity and direction of the magnetic field according to my instructions, and use repulsion and attraction to achieve the control effect in your eyes. However, the technology is not yet mature and needs a lot of improvement. Kesha nodded, but it was clear from her eyes that she liked this attack mode very much, especially the scene where Binghua was sitting there just moving her fingers to control the two flying swords to suppress the fire. Kesha, why do you have time to come to my place? I'm here to tell you that we are leaving the Hera star system. Huaye suffered a defeat and withdrew to Tiancheng. If the coalition has the advantage, they will definitely pursue the victory. In the end, whether Huaye or the coalition forces win, we female angels will become a thorn in their side, and they will do their best to eradicate us, so we have to go back and prepare early. Binghua closed his eyes after hearing this, feeling a little heavy. Whether it was the previous attack on the Mir star system or the war against Huaye this time, it could only be regarded as a local, small-scale battle. The meaning of Kesha's words is that the female angel will become the third largest military group of Huaye after the Angel Nebula Alliance. I believe that the coalition forces and Huaye, who has broken an arm, will definitely recognize the status of the female angel. This also means that Huaye and the coalition forces will never underestimate the strength of the female angel from now on. Thank you for your monthly votes, tips, and recommended votes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 139. The female angels began to evacuate the Hera star system one after another, dividing into two groups and returning to their respective jurisdictions. Before they separated, Binghua, Kesha, Liangbing, and Hexi held a meeting to formulate future general strategies. The first point of the general trap strategy is to break through the obstacles between the various legions as soon as possible and realize the connection between the female angel legions to prevent them from being defeated individually in the future. The second point is that in the future, resources between various angel legions will be shared to a certain extent, with priority given to the supply of space-based legions. The third point is to recruit troops in all directions and step up the production of large facilities such as celestial warships to prepare for the upcoming large-scale war. The large-scale direction is the above, and the details will be added after the return of several angel kings such as Binghua. I believe that our jurisdictions will be in line soon, and it will be much more convenient for us sisters to meet each other. The mixed Skyblade fleet of the Sky Sword Legion and the Sky Base Legion began the final deployment work after arriving in a star field. He-11 stood on the platform of Tianren, and beside him stood Hizui and another female angel. Sister Hexi, I'm waiting for good news from you, but you can't swallow the Ansu Silver King sword I captured. Binghua reminded Hexi, fearing that Hexi would not return it to her, which made Hexi's eyes twitch. Am I the kind of person you think of me as, sister? Don't worry, I'll give you one as a gift after I've thoroughly researched it. Sister, I'll give you another one. Binghua immediately answered. Sister Hexi, this is what you said to give me an Ansu Silver King sword. Don't break your promise then. However, after Binghua's interruption, most of the parting atmosphere dissipated, and in the end He-11 said only. Binghua, don't take too many risks when fighting in the future, I don't want to see you hurting myself again. Remember that only your own life is the most precious. Binghua felt warm in her heart, and faced He-11's nagging. She also replied. Sister Hexie, the same goes for you, and I will not die. I promised you, Sister Hexie, that I would see the day when the female angel transforms into a butterfly. In the end, both sides watched quietly as the heavenly blades where each other was located gradually moved away from each other until they turned into a small dot and disappeared into the vast space of the universe. As for Kesha and Liang Bing, they had left the Sky Blade fleet long ago. After He-11 also led the Sky Blades under his command to leave, the Sky Blade fleet at this moment only had 4 Sky Blades belonging to the Sky Sword Legion. At the edge of the Angel Nebula Mir Galaxy, under the command of the Heavenly Sword King, the Border Guard Angel Legion guards the patrol area. Boom! A huge explosion rose, and a team of 5 angels rushed out amid the burning fire. Sisters have done well, now return. The leading female angel spoke in the dark communication channel, followed by the discussion of the team members. Captain, how did you do that move just now? It's so amazing. Don't you understand? The captain is from the Queen's bodyguard, so of course he is powerful. That's right, if the Queen hadn't wanted to strengthen the grassroots strength of our border guarding angels, the captain would still be serving as a guarding angel. Listening to the discussion of a few new recruits who had just joined the team, the captain who led the team had become accustomed to the chattering discussions of these new recruits after the war. The mission of the Border Guard Angels is to patrol the border at high speeds on a daily basis. Sometimes they will find a reconnaissance ship invading from a half-animal civilization. At this time, each patrol team will go to deal with the invading enemies. Generally there is not much danger, because most reconnaissance ships are remotely controlled, and only a few warships have enemies stationed inside. One of Binghua's original intentions for setting up the Border Guard Angel Legion was to train troops, so most of the original Guard Angels were dismantled and sent to the grassroots level to serve as captains of new recruits. The former Guardian Angels have rich combat experience, and their loss rate has dropped a lot during the border patrols they led the new recruits. Of course, this kind of delegation also has a duration, otherwise it may chill the hearts of the Guardian Angels, so it is usually rotated once in a while. By the way, Captain, you have been the Queen's guardian angel. What kind of angel is the Queen? Among the angel recruits who were chatting away, an angel suddenly asked curiously. That's right, Captain, please tell us. I've never seen the Queen up close. The captain of the female angel team did not pretend to be cold and refused to answer, but fell into the years when she served as a guardian angel. I don't know much about the Queen's situation. I used to be just an ordinary second-level guardian angel. But the Queen is very beautiful, no. The Queen is the most beautiful. She always exudes a high and confident temperament, like a peerless sword standing on the top of a mountain. Although it is sharp, it is only can live alone on the top of a mountain. In battle, the Queen will not be afraid even when facing male angels several times more powerful than herself. In the end, she can always defeat the enemy and achieve the final victory. Therefore, the Queen is my belief. I will always obey the Queen's orders until the day when my life ends. The day comes. When the female angel captain said these words, her tone started with admiration, then yearning, then reverence, and finally enthusiasm, just like a believer introducing the God he serves. This sentiment seemed to rub off on the other 4 angel recruits on the squad. Captain, after hearing what you say, I'm looking forward to meeting the Queen in the future, but I don't know if I will have that chance. A female angel whose voice sounded young spoke. Don't worry, as long as you become an excellent warrior, you will definitely be able to see the Queen. Captain, can I really do that? Listening to the words of the young female angel, who seemed to be looking forward to meeting her idol, the captain of the angel team gave an affirmative answer. But such a simple thing is enough to make these innocent childlike female angels happy for a long time. This angel captain is very experienced in this. This is just a part of the angel army guarding the border. The powerful animal or semi-animal civilization outside the Angel Nebula is taking advantage of the civil strife of the angel civilization to prepare for war. They are like bloodthirsty lone wolves, just waiting for the moment when the angelic civilization is at its weakest, that is the moment when a political power is just established. That's why the edge of the Mill galaxy is so peaceful. There are only some cannon fodder of aerospace-grade civilization sent by the Master to test the authenticity of the angel civilization. However, it is obvious that even the civil strife of the angel civilization still did not abandon the defense of the border, which allowed those civilizations to wait patiently. The news of the Sky Sword King's return from the expedition spread throughout the Mir and Keela star systems in less than a day. The angels guarding the border and a part of the Heavenly Sword Legion who guarded the border of the Mir galaxy cheered for the Queen's victory over Hua. Binghua was praised by the female angels like a hero, like a benchmark that suddenly appeared, and the footprints left on the ground were just to lead the way for the angels who later set out on this path. It turns out that one of our female angels can defeat that scumbag Wang Hua. So why are we still afraid of male angels? Their king was defeated by a female angel with the same identity as us. Why should we accept the situation? We must resist. We must gain the power to resist this unreasonable life. Please subscribe here. Friends who have the conditions can support the next book. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 140. After Binghua led the Heavenly Sword Legion back to the Cross system, he immediately launched an offensive strategy against the Chikul system, which borders the Mir system. The Skull Galaxy is under the rule of Skyfall King Hualien. Although Hualien did not even transport his body back to the Skull Star King city just after his death, Binghua's behavior of sending troops to raid his hometown was a bit inappropriate, but now it was a time of race against time, and Binghua couldn't be allowed to take care of all this. During the designated battle plan, Binghua's left-wing guard Angel Ran was successfully promoted to a third-generation super warrior. He was the first third-generation warrior promoted under the King of Heavenly Sword after Binghua, the King of Skyward Sword. The three Angel Kings, Huglas, Huaxiang, and Huaji, led a huge legion of more than 2 million people under their command and sealed the Tiancheng tightly. After several battles with the coalition forces, Hua group also suffered heavy losses. More than 10 third-generation soldiers at the level of legion commander were lost. Even Hua's confidant, Xinyo, the former commander of the Imperial Guards, died in the last battle. During the battle, not to mention the casualties of ordinary angels, which exceed 1 million. Even the 100,000 Imperial Guards are now less than 50,000. Several celestial battleships have also been lost, and ordinary Tiangong battleships are even more numerous. When Hua returned to Tiancheng, the whole city was filled with angel relatives who were thinking about the fallen soldiers, and the entire Tiancheng was enveloped in an atmosphere of sadness. Among the angels living in Tiancheng, a large number of the younger generation died in the battlefield, so Hua focused on the older generation of angels who participated in the pioneering war. Under the conscription of Hua, the king of Heavenly Palace, the old angels who originally laid down their weapons and planned to spend their old age were reapproved to join the army. Compared with those young angels, these old angels who had followed Huake, the previous king of angels, had more combat experience, and their understanding of killing was engraved in their bones. Although their enemies this time are no longer those ugly half-animal creatures, with the large number of benefits promised by Hua, these old guys don't mind stretching their muscles, even if the opponent is their own race. Therefore, after the call-up order was issued, Hua's troops experienced an expansion, and even had a slight advantage in catching up with the coalition forces. But under the advice of Chen Xing, the only one with an online IQ in the Hua group, Hua was very wise and did not choose to go out of the city to fight to the death with the coalition forces. Because in Dust Star's speculation, the recently emerged female angels in the Angel Nebula will soon have a head-on conflict with the coalition forces. The reason is very simple. Most of the galaxies in the Angel Nebula are now under the control of Huaya or the coalition forces. The goal of the female angels is to overthrow the current order dominated by male angels, which is the order of the heavenly palace established by Wang Yu. But now Kesha and the others do not have the power to compete head-on with Wang Yu. And after that battle, I believe that the coalition forces have also become wary of the female angels. I believe that if Herglass and the others can free their hands, they will definitely choose to destroy Kesha and the others, and extinguish the fire of resistance of the female angels. In the bud. Chenexing's words echoed in the palace hall of Tiancheng, but none of his colleagues around him offered a rebuttal. Even Huaya, who was sitting on the highest throne, had a thoughtful expression on his face, as if he was digesting the meaning of Chen Xing's words. Huaya was not stupid to become the king of angels. After a while, he already had some vague ideas in his mind, so he started to signal Chen Xing to continue, wanting to verify whether what he thought was correct. Chen Xing, with a chuckle on his face, nodded and looked around at his colleagues. He enjoyed being in the spotlight, and did not continue to show off his words in a way that would be annoying. He spoke simply and clearly. As the leader of the female angel group, Kesha, she must be able to clearly see the current situation in Angel Nebula. In order to cope with the encirclement and suppression, she has only one choice, and that is the only choice, and that is to expand. The generals closest to Chen Xing, such as Suri, Sumari, Chen Tian, Kunpeng and other angels were chewing on the word expansion in Chenexing's words, but before they could connect with the female angel, they heard Chen Xing speak again. There are many benefits of expansion. It can strengthen the power and military strength. And according to the information I received, Kesha has already started the pre-expansion publicity work. Chen Xing used his own authority to create a projection screen in the air, which contained a recording of the conversation between the female angels in the celestial city. The content of the words was the news that Huaya was defeated by Binghua and cut off one arm. There were also some inflammatory words in it. The main content was that now female angels can compete with male angels. Female angels no longer need to submit to male angels. Under the despotic power, as long as Huaya is defeated, the female angel can make decisions for herself in the future. After Huaya heard the content, he angrily slapped the armrest of the throne to create a deep palm print, and said angrily, "Who is it? Is that female angel who dares to spread rumors about me in Tiancheng? Catch the angels who spread rumors. I will kill them all. King, please calm down. Most of the female angels in Tiancheng have already known the news. King, you can't kill them one by one. This will make the soldiers under your command resent you." Chenexing's words made some of the older legion commanders at the back of the hall or the generals in charge of Tianquan's defense secretly grateful. Which of these generals does not have daughters or wives? If Huaya orders his execution because of this matter, they will be heartbroken to death. Just now they were cursing Chen Xing, who had revealed this matter, in their hearts, but now they were crying with gratitude. It had to be said that the psychology of these generals was fickle. Huaya clenched his fists tightly and clenched his upper and lower jaws together. After a few seconds, he suppressed the aggrieved feelings and finally only one name came out of his mouth. Binghua. Seeing that Huaya finally calmed down, Chen Xing also breathed a sigh of relief. He was afraid that Huaya would be impulsive and order the execution of all the female angels who spread rumors in the celestial city. If this was the case, the order of the celestial palace would not be far away from falling apart. It was obvious that Huaya felt so aggrieved just because he thought about the consequences of executing the female angel. King, there is no need to be so angry. Sometimes when we look at problems, we can change our perspective. Huaya raised a question mark, and then listened to Chen Xing continue to speak. Isn't this news a sign that the female angel is preparing for a large-scale expansion? And I believe you are not the only one who is angry. Hercules, Hwaxiang, and Hwaji on the coalition side should be more anxious and angry than us, because they are the targets of the female angels. The light screen that previously projected the female angels' conversation disappeared, and a macroscopic star map of the angel nebula appeared instead. King, please look at everyone present. This is the Mir galaxy and the Kara galaxy. It is the sphere of influence of the four queens of angels and Sky Sword King Binghua. The two galaxies separated from it are the sphere of influence of Tianji King Hexi, then the sphere of influence of Apocalypse King Liangbing, and finally, here is the sphere of influence of Sky Blade King Kesha. The spheres of influence of these four angel queens are not adjacent to each other, and are more or less separated by one or two galaxies. If I were Kesha, my first goal after returning would be to break through the obstacles between the various queen forces and bring the scattered angel queen forces together into a whole.